All right.
Okay, we are here in Senate Senate Committee on Institutions. It is April 16th. And what we are going to be discussing today, it's all in the governor's recommended capital budget. And we're looking at items in section 2, which is the agency of administration. And we may discuss the Veterans Home, and we will discuss Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we will begin with section 2, which is the agency of administration, buildings and general services. And we have the commissioner might join us, but we have Joe Aja. And if Joe, if you want to get in the witness chair, please introduce yourself, and then we will chat about section.
Great. For the record, I'm Joe Aja, the Director for Design and Construction of Buildings and General Services.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And okay, so
Make sure.
this is a really important section. And the goal today is to finish this section up. And I don't have my notes. Okay, good. So you have a presentation.
Yes. Madam Chair, so this is section 2, the word for the Building General Services does directly with all of our buildings. First up is major maintenance. This is an annual appropriation. And what we do, we have, over 234 buildings, give or take. I know that's really over 4 million square feet of office, correctional facilities, labs, courthouses, state house. It's over 900 million replacement value. And of that, we have 25% of our buildings are operated 24/7. So that's in our correctional facilities mainly, but also our mental health facilities, the labs, they're also fully operational for 24/7.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a quarter of our buildings. With that, with the funding that was provided in the last biennium, we did a breakdown by facility type to show you where those funds are going. And over both years, it's basically going to correctional facilities and general office space. And this is just major maintenance funds. So when you look at labs or mental health or police barracks, state house, those have line items to them. And that's for the work that we're doing for those. I mean, we could have a line item for a roof, and that would not be part of major maintenance. But we also do roofs as part of major maintenance. So we try to limit now, with everything going on with tariffs and whatnot, it might change a little bit, but roughly the break point is 750,000 that we look at. If it's over 750, we probably go to a line item instead of using major maintenance funds because it consumes so much of the major maintenance funds with a limit of only 8 million. Sometimes a little bit over that, sometimes a lot of it is we are considerably under.
Just a question on this is, so the current allocation is 8 million roughly. Does the 8 million seem to be the appropriate amount?
We've been doing that for the past several bienniums, yes. I think with the tariffs that are coming and just because of everything else that we're doing in our building, the change in manage codes and the likes of that. And our deferred maintenance that we have that in the future, bienniums will be asking for more. But you realize that, bonding is tight, so it's stuff.
Okay. It's helpful, thank you.
So with that allocation of program funding, when we look at the projects that are coming in is whether or not they are planned, unplanned, or an emergency. So as you can see, most of our work is all planned. How do we plan that? My program chief, Lauren Washburn, who's sort of in charge of major maintenance, and she works with her 6 liaisons and all of the 6 DFMs, district facility managers for operations and maintenance. They meet on a regular basis to push projects up. Twice a year, we will assign major maintenance projects. And these are projects that are not fee for space and are too large for our maintenance people to handle. So it comes to the work order system, it's reviewed every week. There's a review of work orders that come in, whether or not they should be major maintenance or fee for space, or potentially even a line item. And then they go into a bucket, and then every 6 months, we then go through them all. We rate them priority 1 through 3, and then put them onto the major maintenance list and assign them to my project managers. On the plan are a lot of items that doesn't meet the level of emergency. You lost the water heater. That's where an emergency would come in. But unplanned is, right now down at the Marble Valley Correctional Facility, you're noticing corrosion on a hot water storage tank. That could be an issue. So to prevent that, we're going to do it now. It's not on the major maintenance list to be done, but that's an unplanned.
Sometimes the unplanned and budgeted for it, but maybe in next year, the maintenance that you were going to do on it, what would you do with that money that you were? Would it just stay there, or would you
Just move it around on the list, and another project will backfill it easily.
Okay.
So that is what happens. So there are some that, you look at a lot of stuff, the end of life is, 15 to 20 years, and that's what you're planning for. But sometimes water heater, the boiler, the roof, something happens before that end of life happens, and then you got to replace it. Other times, you could, on a sizable boiler, put $2,000 into it, and you get another 5 years out of life out of it. So then we have good luck with our maintenance staff of maintaining our boilers and mechanical systems. So our systems are older than their life cycle. So the air handlers in this building, some were installed in the 70s. They were just now replacing. So that's how all major maintenance is handled. Long shopping list, and it's just reaching back out with our maintenance staff to make sure that these items are the priority 1 and something else hasn't risen to the top. And then they go on a list and gets parsed out to project managers, and we get the work done.
Yeah.
And I apologize, within the major maintenance does include preventive maintenance as well.
Normally, preventive maintenance is done at the maintenance level.
Okay.
There are larger items that do go to preventive maintenance, but it's minimal.
Okay.
It's really that they're at end of life or prematurely failed. Some of our pumps are very sizable pumps, could be $5,000 for a pump. That doesn't go out of the fee for space. That's a major maintenance item.
So it wouldn't be in the capital, it'd be in the operations.
Yes.
Okay.
And major maintenance is typically done through contract.
Yes.
Accurate.
Yeah, all of our work, let's say 99.5% of our work is through contracts. Anything, typically if it's an emergency and it's still something short and sweet, replacing a pump that we need to get done, we do that off of invoice. It is under $10,000.
Okay.
Anything over $10,000, even though an emergency we replaced it, we will follow back up with a contract.
Okay. And so how many personnel do you have on staff to manage this projects? Or just what's the amount of personnel that are involved in major?
First thing you call project managers.
12.
Yep, we're short a few, and we just hired one a month ago. She's learning, mechanical engineer, so she's learning the trade. So we're out there. She's watching a construction project right now.
Great.
So she can start learning. Doesn't have as much construction experience, so putting her in the field as a clerk of the works off and on. So she can get that. So yeah.
So 12 positions, and how many?
I got 3,
3
4
vacancies.
vacancies right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good luck, because those are hard jobs to fill.
Absolutely. We've been doing it for a while.
Okay, thank you.
statewide planning, reuse, and contingency. So the planning, end of things for projects that we're looking at is things out there in the future that we may want to do and put money into. Sometimes it could be, looking at 120 State Street. Before we asked for any funding for that, we did some planning, use some planning monies to hire an architectural firm to give us a high overlook of what we could do to the building with some options. And then we know what we're gonna be asking for dollar wise to come in. They're not always that big, sometimes they're smaller, planning projects that we do, but that was planning is for. The reuse funds is when we look at having to relocate somebody for one reason or another. It could be on a temporary basis. It could also be on a permanent basis that one department, one division needs a little more room. And so we're moving them into another spot and we're using that for free use. Contingency is just that. Any of our shortfalls out of the capital bill, we will look to the contingency fund to help offset that. Again, we're capped at $100,000 for use of contingency on per project. We can go higher with the approval of the secretary and also going to the emergency fund. And when I was in here the other day, I talked yesterday about reallocation, that $2 million for Williston Public Safety was reallocated. We originally got that by going to the emergency board to get those funds. So there are other ways around using contingency funds. But typically we like to keep it under the 100,000. So it's just really nice slush fund.
And a cash, it says in the cash category, which makes sense to me.
Yes, and this deck here of a slideshow is what was presented to the House. So some of the numbers got moved around or still may be moved around by you. So it's the original request.
Yes, and it still is in cash.
Yes. Major maintenance changed. Originally, the administration requested $8 million in cash and the House changed it to 7.12 million, I think, for bonded money and the balance for the connection. So. Next up is physical security. And this is our Building and General Services Safety and Security Group that they use these funds here to go through and replace and upgrade camera systems, card access systems. Just online now, the security for buildings, panic buttons and the likes of that go through. When we do a normal renovation project of a space through major maintenance or a line item, we include those costs in our project. So this is really to maintain all those systems that they have out there. I couldn't tell you now how many cameras and card readers we have out there, but it's tremendous. 3-acre parcel stormwater. We're moving forward on this. We have the Northland Job Corps in Virginia, the Central Services Complex in Middlesex, and one and Pittsburgh Criminal Justice Training Council. We have our permits for those facilities, and we're moving forward with construction. We're going to be going to bid soon for construction this summer. The other sites we're still working on our permits, obtaining those. A little bit more difficult. Montpelier may slip more than we initially anticipated because some of that stormwater was going to be across the street, and that may have to be evaluated when we look at any mitigation we're doing with the FEMA funds due to the flooding. So even though we're looking at what we're doing there, right now we're planning on doing subsurface water treatment for stormwater. But if we lower the parking lots, then they would be exposed. So that's what we're evaluating right now. And the funding that we have will get us through the projects that we have permitted right now. So we should be good.
So the 8 sites, you completed permitting for the 8?
For 3.
For 3, okay, so, and are there other sites that need this permit that are not identified?
No.
Okay, so
Unless
the
A&R changes things,
okay,
unless somebody changes the rules of the 3-acre rule, right now that goes to the north and northwest of the state of Vermont. Basically, 102 going west into the Champlain watershed is what we're working on right now.
So, okay, so let me ask you quick, because there are conversations, but are you saying you have only looked at that area?
These are only the sites in that area that impact us right now to comply with the permitting requirements. of
Okay.
ANR.
Okay,
If they come out and say the balance of the state now has to be treated also,
yes,
then we would evaluate which of our properties in that remaining quadrant or area that has to be done, and then we would develop a new list and come up with some estimates to tackle that.
okay. So in how many years do you expect these sites to be completed?
Once we have a permit in hand, we have up to 5 years to complete the work. Our intent is to get it done as soon as possible, but it's also balancing the needs of the capital bill as a whole. And then the work that I can actually get out with the number of project managers that I have. So
So let me ask it a different way. How far along are you in this?
we're for the 3 sites,
Well, for the 8 sites,
for 3, we're ready to go out to bid for construction
right?
this summer. The other 5 will be going through the permit process, and as soon as we have enough funds for that, we will then move forward, and it may be next biennium where I'm asking for the balance of that once we have an estimate for those sites.
Okay, so let me just to confirm, we're less than halfway.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Montpelier, I think, would be further along, but again, that's sort of on a little bit of a pause until we know what we're doing.
yeah, that sounds like the right thing to do. We don't
Yes.
want to waste money. Okay, cool. I was just wondering how far along. Okay, thank you.
Art and State Buildings. This here is administered by the Vermont Arts Council. And here is a photo that shows one of the art here at the River Valley Treatment Center up in Colchester. And they, along with the mural painting here on the outside of one of the buildings, they also have art on the inside. So each year now, they request $75,000 for art. They then work with BGS as to what our projects coming up at the Capitol Bill, in which we should be or could be used to do art with. And then the Arts Council is the one who goes through and does all of that work behind the scenes. The Windsor County, the District Court in Hartford, White River, is one of those that will also be getting art.
That's great. And
Yes.
that's a program that we kind of solidified last session.
Just they increased last session from 50,000 to 75,000.
And it became a regular thing.
It's cool.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
and it's working well as far as your.
Yes, it's,
process is okay.
the process is that, once a site is picked, the Arts Council actually goes out and gathers up, works with the project manager first as to, what is the project? Where could we do art? Because in some cases, it's been opened up to correctional facility, so we get the biggest bang for the buck and the likes of that, but more the public to see it as opposed to just employees or other individuals like this here. You can't, this is inside the fenced-in area, so the general public cannot necessarily just walk up and view that art. But that's what they work with, and where is, what can be done. Then they go out and solicit artists for ideas. Then there's a panel that meets and votes, and that's how we get the artwork. And then the artist starts developing their work, or the project managers, okay, what's coming in here and what needs to be done. We'll do some of ours, and it's relatively simple, add blocking in the walls, the likes of that, for the artists to fasten their stuff to.
Great.
We've done foundations down at the Agriculture and Environmental Lab. There's a foundation of the frog that's out there, or the foundation, some other sites that we have around that. There's art outside.
And the courthouse is in that part too, which is nice.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Asa Bloomer, the building that keeps on giving for us. What we're doing right now is focusing really on the sewer upgrade. What you see in the photos on the right is more of the ones towards the center are actually looking at the box culvert that runs underneath the basement slab. Goes from one end of the building to the other. It continues out into a city manhole. And when it's a combined stormwater and sewer, and so when there are high flows, the photos on the far right show you that it comes up through the slab. It creates quite the mess for cleanup and smells throughout the building.
Through the slab.
Through the slab, there's holes and cracks through that slab.
Okay.
And part of it is if there wasn't, probably because of the pressure, it would actually buckle the slab in some locations. So right now it's being relieved. So this project is going to go through and basically run one or more pipes through this whole system to go from one side of the building all the way out to the city manhole. So we never have this issue again.
Good.
Yes. And that work should be done this summer. We have a construction manager
Sure.
starting already. Multimodal garage renovation. This here is also in Rutland. We've done a study over the years and we were evaluating during that study to do a short-term, like 10-year plan versus a 20-year plan for renovations. And we're looking at doing right now sort of a 10-year fix that shores it up quite well. But the biggest issue with this facility, you can see on the photo on the right, is we have installed some temporary shoring because that beam and the connections above are not all that great. That is the main ramp coming into where you're transitioning from the ramp into the parking garage itself on the second level. So with that staging that we have, although it's temporary, it's quite beefy, you can probably stay there for 20+ years. But our intent is to go through and correct these items, the larger items. You can see where in the center left photo, there's a crack in the concrete. That's not a structural thing, but if there's movement, it does become a potential issue. So those will be corrected. There's also cracked concrete throughout like that, through the salt getting into the concrete, causing corrosion with the steel that's in there and some spalling concrete. And we're going to patch those items. Because right now we've gone through when we did this temporary staging, we also had individuals on a lift going through and picking off the loose concrete. So it would fall and hit somebody or damage somebody's vehicle. And we're going to go back through and patch that. There's in the center, the photo of that, there's actually, it's open all the way up through all the parking decks, slot, if you will, of 10 feet wide or something like that. It goes up to the top deck and allows light, actual light to come down through the center core. The problem with that, it's got a roof on it. The problem is the snow slides off, then curls underneath and then drops down right before flips. So we're looking to fix that also.
What age is that garage? Just roughly. It looks relatively new.
It is. I don't recall if it was in the late 90s and the 2000s.
Okay.
Probably 2000 when it was constructed.
Okay. Thank you.
This parking decks, when not properly maintained, can be an issue because what we have, once you put your concrete down, it's precast and it's thinner than your normal cast in place concrete. Then you put a topping layer over that so it pitches to a drain. And then you put a membrane on top of that. The membrane does not hold up well to stud tires.
Mhm.
And so really if you're looking at cleaning and patching on a yearly basis, we did an estimate when we were looking at 108 Cherry Street, and that estimate came in at $250,000 a year is what we should be spending on maintenance just on one way at Cherry Street. So once we do get it
They're
fixed
very
up,
expensive.
it'll be, yes. You know, it has a need, but it's, you're not taking a lot of ground outside by going through it. Just for Academy, the firing range upgrades. Over the years, we have upgraded this range, but if you can sort of see on the photo top left, bottom right, there's sunlight coming through. Where you can see the sunlight coming through also allows in the snow. And when the people are on the range training, you shoot from, I think, starting at 3 yards and then back yourself up to 25. But when you're going down and looking at your store or you're basing down there, there's now in the wintertime, there's a buildup of ice or snow. And that becomes dangerous when you're got a fire. So this is going to start looking at the design of enclosing that range of just a roof. Because if you do enclose it, we have an issue with lead, and then you'd have to then properly ventilate that space. It can be done, but then your filters are an issue because it's a hazardous waste. So by just putting the roof over the top of this to prevent the weather from coming in, we sort of get the best of both worlds.
Like an awning kind of roof.
Something like that to cover all these areas.
Yeah. Thanks. Any questions on that? Oh, that, yeah.
Yes.
Look at that, bro.
State House, replacement of historic repair and historic finishes. This is funding for David Sheets. This is where he goes through, because when you look at it as a whole, and the State House is special compared to all of our other buildings. But when you're looking at a priority one, carpet that has truly failed or something that's truly failed, it doesn't rise to that occasion here in the State House. So David has his own fund to look at, replacement, patching, of finishing throughout the State House. And these ones here is what he is using them for. He had built up a lot, due to COVID and the likes of that, high cost, trying to get somebody to do this carpet. The carpet here is a broad loom woven carpet, but the seams are not a good seam, they're hand sewn seams. So it's finding somebody to come in and actually do that type of work. So once we find a contractor, he was able to start moving forward, and that's why we're only asking for money in 27 and not 26, because he still has some leftover funds. State House 322. When we were working on the east entrance two years ago, we repointed the mortar. But on here, when you look at the State House on the right hand State Street side, the mortar was done 2 years prior to that, was also failing. And so we didn't know why. So we just replaced it on the east facade when we did the east entrance, and it also started failing right away. It didn't know why. So we spoke to the company who actually makes lawn putty mortar that we used on the State House. We brought them out here, learned a tremendous amount, that we have the right mortar. However, we need to draw the granite out. So when you look at the granite, and here you can see there's some discoloration, both in some light brown, gray, to find out that's actually the moisture in
The dark
granite
one?
itself is, yes,
Okay.
very hot, and we find out. So by tooling the joint, we found out that actually is trapping the moisture. So we had to go through a process and come up with a design of how to go around this whole State House. Some of it will be replacing the gutters, repairing the gutters, and replacing the roof. Some of it is also in and around the windows where we have some water leakage coming in. And it's really to go through and start the process of drying out the masonry first. And then we'll do a final repointing. So the first round will be mortar that will be sacrificial, and that mortar, the line putting mortar, is designed to fill first, but it will also draw the moisture out of the granite block. So as it's drawing the moisture out, of somewhat crumble and fall, and then later on we'll go back and replace that. So we'll probably go around the whole building over a number of years, and then once we're done, probably one area we'll be able to come in and do a final repointing, and then do touch-ups like we normally would with a couple of years where area has fallen. This is a rough estimate at 8.9 million of what we're looking for, talking to this contractor. But once we know exactly the extent of it, we're not sure. But this involves this cost of the roof and the gutters, the working in and around the windows.
Wow. Is this a new project?
Yes. And this is just the beginning. After what we learned talking to this contractor, he brought him in twice last year to evaluate things. And
So just, because we have another building that we have to dry out.
It seems that Vermont is a very moist state.
it is becoming.
It's actually
really moist.
more.
And that is why I think we're doing, one of the things with the HVAC system that we're doing here is adding dehumidification to that. Because we do have more moisture in here.
Yeah.
And that is contributing to the moisture in the granite block because there's no place to go. You can start drying out in here as this place warms up, it's migrating out, but it's not getting far out. It's not coming off of the granite.
Right, and working
So-
with insulation too, makes it.
That's one of
challenging.
those things too, you know, the more insulation you add, you're trapping more of
Yeah.
that moisture. And it can be an issue, and that's why, you know, they're now looking at, started in the eighties, you know, when you were building something, you put up poly film on your outside wall to cover your insulation. That now they're trying to do, they're looking to do away with it because it's with more and more air conditioning that's going on, the vapor barrier's in the wrong spot.
Yeah,
It's having someplace in between.
and then you get,
So they're sort of leaning with maybe no vapor barrier is best. Need the insulation, trapping you not to be going back and forth, but at least the moisture's got to go one way or the other.
right, so just one question, so this, temporary, mortar is actually going to be the thing that dries out.
Yes,
Okay, that's really interesting. That's a lot
Yes.
better than having to do.
is that the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
The monument has different type mortar, different
Okay.
issues.
well, we are learning so much, aren't we?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here at Montpelier, 120 State Street, the steam lines and interior renovation. This project's been kicked around multiple times and we're moving forward. We're sending an RFP request for proposal on the street for a design firm to really do this whole thing over, similar to what we did a number of years ago with 133 State Street. So this is the steam, the radiators in this building are original. The steam lines come in, interstice space from the outside wall of the plastered wall. Then they run into the floor, do a U-turn, come back up and stuff up against the wall under these radiators. And they're starting to corrode and starting to fail. Steam is a little bit harder to control heat wise than you would normally with just regular water going through. People don't like to adjust the valve. You know, if it's cold in there, they just turn the valve on and leave it on and then open the window instead. So by converting over to hot water, whether it's going to be a baseboard type system, a unit ventilator, something like that, we will be adding air conditioning to the entire building. Because right now the top 3 floors have window units that the operation maintenance staff has to install and take out every spring and fall. So that'll help out tremendously in this building. And during that, to do all of this, we will have to remove all of the ceilings and redo the electrical. Right now, there's a lot of fluorescent lighting in there, so that'll be an energy upgrade at the same time. And so we're put a chiller probably on the roof. And then all the pipes will run down internally and you won't see anything else. And the radiators and the exterior wall will go away and become something else.
Wow. And is that a new? I
It's
mean,
been
I
in
know
the,
we've
it's
had
been in the
issues
work,
for a while, but-
right, it's been in the planning phase, and we've kicked the can on it, due to limitations on the bonding, and we now are going out to bid for design and starting that project to
Okay,
get it going,
that's a big deal.
yes.
So we'll maybe do a little field trip to the steam plant, which is just across the street. Okay,
Middlesex, so this archives building, this is if some may remember from last year, we had money in the cash fund for a roof, but that is the low roof as opposed to the upper roof. So the low roof is, if you look at the bottom picture to your left, that is the low slope roof where you see the snow sliding off. On the bottom right, you can see the copper roof, that is low roof, and then on the upper right, where it's in Vermont State Archives, that whole dark area is what we're going to be replacing this year under last year's funding. This request is for the gray and white roof. The gray roof and the white roof are original, so they're roughly 20 plus years old. You can start seeing in the gray roof, it's a membrane roof and it's got a weaved scrim in between the two layers of roofing material. And you're now actually seeing that scrim come through. So it's just being eroded away with the UV light and the snow sliding off of it. So that's what this $1 million is for, is to replace the upper roof. In the same building, we have the Print Postal UPS, uninterruptible power source. In the reallocations, there was $58,279 that came from old money to this project and added it to the $308,000 for this project. And what that does is, over time, the new equipment that is being brought in and used to keep the Print Postal working has grown in size. Plus, also they are redundant. They have two pieces of equipment just in case one breaks down, then they can quickly go to the other one and get going. It's all computerized. Problem being is when you lose power, it's like a hard drive. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it does not. It has a generator on site, but there's still that blip. The UPS is just a big battery that'll carry it through that blip, so it doesn't see it. The machines will not know the difference, and that will keep them going.
Sounds worth it.
Waterbury State Office, the historic core, replacing the roof, the slate roofs that are down there during the renovations way back after Irene that redeveloped this whole site. At that point in time, the slate wasn't that bad. There's also a cost savings of not doing all the slate roofs. 10 years later, plus, we're at that point where a lot more slates are falling off the roof. That happens with slate anyways. The problem being is the slate, as it gets older in age, turns brittle. So you go up there on the roof, you sort of have to hang off of a basket to replace it. Otherwise, when you put weight on it, it can sometimes crack 2 or 3 more slates. So you're up there a while trying to replace the slate. So this is going to be a wholesale replacement of all the slate roofs that are down there.
So they will be slate roof, you're replacing them with slate?
We're slate. We have, in the valleys, we're increasing the widths in the valleys of the copper, because that is where your ice will build up and create a problem on the slate. And by increasing the width of those valleys, we thought to prevent some of that. And that is working with historic preservation, because it is on the historic register, so they do have say over this. But that is a nice little benefit, and that should help out to be good for a number of years.
Can we get historic funds for that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So that will be starting this summer. "32 Cherry Street parking garage, another parking garage. This one, as you can see, yes, we've tried for the best photos. But Rutland's not this bad, but 32 Cherry Street is. Some of 32 Cherry Street is the original part of the courthouse in the late 80s, early 90s. We put an addition on, but that too is seeing some wear. So we're going through and rehabbing that whole facility. So we're looking at a, $5 million plus project to go in there. And the difficulty here is it's an operating courthouse. So it's going to be how to mitigate noise when we're doing this while court is still going on. We're going to be hopscotching around to do certain areas. So people can still use the garage, and the contractor will have a certain area. They will do their demolition, make all their repairs. Once it's complete, we then, assign those parking spaces to somebody else while we go work in another area. That is it.
Great. Now,
Question 2.
yeah. And most of the funding that you requested, other than the location of the major maintenance, Actually, the Middlesex one had a change. So I don't know if you would speak to the funding categories? That might,
I can't, I don't have that in front of me, but I know that the changes that the House has made, we don't object to.
you do not.
We do
object
not,
to?
we do not.
Cause the Middlesex one, it looks like it was very specific number, $58,279.44.
That was-
bonded.
Because those were leftover funds
Okay,
from the earlier project and we didn't have enough to do the UPS. And so we're just reallocating that into that project to get this project done.
so you're fine with that?
Yes,
Okay. And the other one. Oh, that was just a minor change from 219,723 to 219,500. That's not a big deal.
The big ones, the 3 acre. Personal stormwater components,
yes.
400,000 less.
Yes, and you're fine with that because.
I am, because I've got 3 sites that I have to tackle, try to do this summer.
Okay,
And it all depends on permitting on the next, and again, we have 5 years to complete the work. So if that money can, go elsewhere,
okay.
I always like to have a full bucket of money, but
Well,
I know how it is, it's tight.
you have multiple.
You're very accommodating.
This year is not bad, last biennium, a little harder,
Oh, good.
last year was a good one.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments or?
No.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe.
But you're welcome.
And I think, was that all that we had you here? Looked like
But
it.
today,
Section
anyway.
2. Okay. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
There you go.
You too.
Thanks, John.
All right. So. Is there anything that committee wants to discuss in section 2? All right, then I think we will take a break. Our next